All right, so good evening, everyone, again. So my name is Sebastian Ng. I'm the sales manager and the application engineer at Fronius Australia. So today, what we're going to do is guide you through our virtual booth. As you may know, this year has been quite a challenge for Australia in general when we want to do events. There's different events in Melbourne, in Sydney, and usually end customers come and ask us questions at our booth. So I'm pretty sure you all are interested to know about inverter technology and also maybe are looking for solar system. So please feel free to ask me any question at any time. I will answer all of them. Yeah, please don't hesitate. I think this is the perfect time to learn about solar. It can be any general topic that you want, or it can be in terms of what I'm showing you guys, but feel free to ask any questions. So we will start in few minutes. We always start, let's say, a few minutes later, just to see if other people will join. So just bear with us for a few minutes and it should start soon. Thank you. All right. I think we're gonna get the ball rolling here. Looks like there's a few more people who join us. So just for those who came a bit later on, again, my name is Sebastian Ng, application engineer and sales manager at Fronius Australia. So I will guide you today through our virtual booth. You should be able to see the whole booth on our side. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask us at any time. So I think let's maybe get the ball rolling. So I will just turn off my camera and we should get the ball rolling from there. All right, welcome again to everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight for this particular session. So yeah, thanks again for joining us. And as some of you guys know, it's a bit of a challenge to meet end customers, installers at our trade show this year here in Australia. But luckily, Fronius International has put a virtual booth for us where we will be able to show you different product that we are bringing, the current range of product, also different technologies that we are working on. So maybe let's jump in the session here. So as you walk in through our virtual trade show, the first thing that you will see at the welcoming area is the 24 hours of sun, which is the vision that Fronius has. So what is this 24 hours of sun? It's basically being able to supply the world with 100% renewable energy. So that's the goal that Fronius has. We know that it's not only solar where Fronius performs, but let's say has a big part to play in this 100% renewable. We know that there's hydro, there's different technologies now coming into play. So where Fronius plays a big part is basically the let's say the solar sector, where we have, let's say, bigger system when we install commercial system around Australia, but also we have a smaller residential system. So we play, I would say, all around from the smaller scale to your 5 megawatt jobs here. So I was also lucky to go to a site here in Australia where they had a 3 meg project, which is quite a massive system. So you can see here our product is installed around the world. So even back home where I'm from Mauritius, we have Fronius inverters there. So you can see in part of Asia, part of America, Africa, we have system all around the world. And that's how we want to achieve it step by step to be able to achieve this 24 hours of sun. And anyone who purchased, let's say, our product also is part of this vision. They play a big part in achieving this goal of 100% renewable. So maybe let's go and have a look at our current range of inverter. So let's go to the snap inverter here. Here you can see our residential inverters on the left and our commercial inverters on the right. Today, what we're going to focus on is more residential inverters. So here you have different range. So we have the Primo for single phase house, we have the Simo for three-phase houses, and also we have the Fronius Simo hybrid, so three-phase hybrid system. The Primo goes from 3 to 8.2 kilowatt, and the Simo goes from 3 to 8.2 kilowatt, but we also have a 10 kilowatt and 15 kilowatt, which gets also installed on residential houses. So let's maybe have a look at the snap inverter range. So with the snap inverter range, I think we actually got around 400,000 units now in Australia, which is quite a massive part. So pretty sure you guys have heard about our inverter before. We're quite well known in Australia, so installers really like the product. It's really easy to install. Our product is still made in Australia, in Europe, so it's really high quality product. But also everything that comes into this product, we make sure that it's easy for every party to use. So the snap inverter technology, as you will hear quite a lot of Fronius snap inverter range. This particular inverter, why we call it snap inverter is just because of the way that we install the inverter. So we have a wall bracket that goes basically on the wall, and then from there you have the rest of the unit which snaps in there. So that's why we call it snap inverter, and why installers really like it is, again, easy to install, but also if we need to change something, it's pretty fast and convenient for them. So they just have to remove 4 screws most of the cases, and the unit comes off of the wall. So it's really easy and fast, and there's not a lot of things to do of disconnecting wires, for example. So that's one of the, let's say, big advantage with the product. We also have integrated data communication. So with data communication, why we have that? So for us, it's really important to give to installers or end customers the ability to look at what their system is doing, but also this vision that we have is 24 hours of sun. So we know that you can't do everything by yourself. So we can't do everything through solar. There's different renewable sectors. So that's why we open our protocol where we can talk to different devices. Also for tech savvy people who likes to play around with different, let's say, home management system devices in their house, they can easily integrate those things also with the inverter. So we will cover that maybe a bit later on. Our inverter is smart ready, so it meets the criteria here in Australia, all the power function, all the controls that is required. So we put a lot of emphasis in our product. In terms of design and also export limiting, with our inverter, also the installers find it pretty easy. We have all the solution, let's say, in one product. Also, we have a smart algorithm in the inverter, so that's something for sometimes customers will hear about. They said, okay, there's a bit of shading on my roof. Maybe a string inverter won't work there, but the thing is, within our inverter, we have a tracker, a algorithm which is basically called the dynamic peak manager. So what it does is, when you have a bit of shading on your panels, there is this point where you can have a small amount of energy. So what our tracker does is it finds this maximum power point, and this is not found in, let's say, all string inverters out there. So definitely it's something that you can find also on YouTube if you're interested. So this is our Fronius residential inverter. So what we will cover a bit today is also our new inverter coming in Australia. So you should be able to purchase it now through installers. So what I will do is go to the residential area and show you our new Fronius Gen 24. So the Fronius Gen 24, which is coming, is called the Fronius Simo Gen 24, and this one will be a three-phase inverter. And later down the year, or like let's say next year, we will bring also the single phase, the Primo Gen 24. So today we will talk a bit more about the three-phase solution here. Some of those features also apply. So I would say most of the features will also apply to the Primo Gen 24. So let's have a look at the inverter here. So maybe let's start with some features and function. So here you can see remove the screen. So this is a hybrid inverter. When it comes to hybrid, there's a lot of information that we need to have and to show. So that's why we have an app to basically monitor the system. You also have our monitoring portal, SolarWeb, which I will cover a bit later on. This inverter has a multi-flow technology, so I will cover that a bit also after that. We have different backup options, one called PV point, one called full backup. I will show you guys what you can do with this inverter, and also energy management. So let's say if you have a hot water system, if you have electrical vehicles, what you can do with this unit, and a lot of third-party interfaces. And the last part is also the service. We know how service is important within the product. So I will talk a bit about those features, what is really important when it comes to, let's say, an inverter, as the inverter, let's say, is the heart of the system. So it's really important to pay attention to this component, because if this component doesn't work, then you don't actually have power in your place. So let's dig into maybe a bit more within the product. So I will remove the top cover. So the first thing that you will see when you compare that with our snap inverter is we have a different cooling system. So it's a different heat sink that we have here. So it's really important in terms of cooling the inverter down. It plays a big role in terms of lifetime of the component. So just a general concept. Every time you add 10 degrees to any electrical component, you reduce the lifetime by half. So our inverter has an active cooling system, which basically cools the heatsink on the outside, but we also have a fan inside to circulate the air to cool the inverter more efficiently. So what we did with the inverter here, you'll see the whole heatsink and also the active cooling technology with the fan there. So here, what will happen is that the fan will suck all the air from the front and blow it on the side. So what we did with this particular unit is we had a bigger fan running at the front, so we don't need this fan to run at, let's say, full speed. But also with this new heat sink, which is a pretty new technology. I haven't seen anyone having the same type of heat sink system. So we can really cool the inverter in an efficient manner where we don't need to run this fan at 100%. So that's pretty new, and this is something that I would recommend any customers to pay really attention on. Why? Because here in Australia, the ambient temperature gets pretty high, and usually when I ask installers, they said, hey, look, it's around sometimes 30, 40 degrees. I can tell you if it is 30, 40 degrees inside the unit, it gets way warmer. And if you don't have a really good cooling technology there, your inverter will either derate or it will basically have starting to have issues. So with our inverter, we make sure that it can be installed in those harsh conditions. It has been designed and also tested in those harsh conditions. So you will see that a lot of installers will tell you about this experience with the product. So really, really important to pay attention. In my past experience, people say, hey, there's this other product with, let's say, maybe at a lower price. But the thing is, you need to also look at the performance of the system. So sometimes it's worth to pay a bit more for the product and have this extra energy that it can produce throughout the day. And then from there, you can also get paid, let's say, or get your return on investment faster on the product. So it's something to take care of, I would say. In terms of the inverter here, it's pretty simple for the installer, but I thought it would be quite interesting for even the customer to have a look at. So let's say when the customer needs to install the product, or sorry, the installer needs to install the product. So it's pretty simple. They just need to snap the inverter on the wall. So it's kind of like a similar feature. So you have a wall bracket, and then from there you snap that in. So then you have a feature on the right hand side to lock the product there. But the other interesting part is whatever, let's say, servicing needs to be done, exchange needs to be done, or even installation needs to be done, it's pretty simple. There are 180-degree screw on the inverter, and it's pretty easy to remove the bottom cover. And here you can see we have a full access. It's quite easy for the installer to work on the product. So this is also important for I would say the end customer, in a way where if an exchange needs to happen, that's where it's pretty fast. So here with servicing, you can see how easy it is to swap the components there. So there's one power stack inside the unit that you need to change. From my experience here, I would say Australia is quite at an early stage when it comes to solar. Fronius has been in the industry for 75 years, and we know that servicing is important. Any electrical component will need to be serviced at a point of time. The question is how easy it is to do. With all our inverters, since the beginning, we have like an easy process to change components as you go. So that's also quite important to pay attention to. I would say it's a bit like servicing your car sometimes. So that's what happened, for example, in Germany. Over there, they service the inverters a bit like servicing a car. So as you can see, this is a completely new design. It's pretty exciting, I would say, for us. So I will just put the cover back on, and we can also see the open interfaces available on this inverter. So this is similar to our Snap inverter. We have all the open protocol to talk to different devices. We can control energy management, so like a pool pump. We can, like if there's excess of power, we can control that. There's different options like e-mobility also, which I will cover a bit later on. So of course, this is a hybrid inverter, and when it comes to hybrid, the first question that comes is what happens when I have a blackout. So with this particular inverter, there are two options when it comes to backup. So when we talk about backup, it's really important to understand what you can do and what you can't do. So this particular SIMO Gen 24, there will be three sizes that will be coming to Australia. There will be a 10 kilowatt, a 10 kilowatt, an 8 kilowatt, and a 6 kilowatt. So depending on which combination you take, and depending on what your loads are in your house, you can maybe do a full backup of your whole house as an option. The maximum, depending again what combination you take, what inverter you take, what battery you buy, the maximum that you can get out of the system, let's say you take the maximum of an inverter, maximum of a battery, it's basically 9 kilowatts. So most of the time you can back up your whole house if you have a three-phase house, of course, because it's a SIMO Gen 24. So just to have a look at the full backup here. So what will happen is when you have a grid outage, you will be able to power, let's say, your house completely. The thing is, if let's say you have a lot of loads on at your place, what you will need to do, or what the installer will need to do, is they will need to separate essential load and non-essential load. So when the grid goes down, your essential load gets powered. And when this needs to be done, sometimes there is wiring which is required on site. So they need to rewire some circuits, which can cost, let's say, a bit more. But there's also another option with the inverter. It's called the PV point. So there is a secondary AC output within the inverter itself, and you don't need to do a lot of rewiring. It's basically a cable coming from the inverter, and then it goes to a GPU. The thing is, this particular GPU will be powered only if the grid goes down. If the grid is here, this GPU doesn't get any power. Now, what's the difference between the full backup and this one? The PV point, the maximum power that you can get out of it is 3 kilowatt, and it's only single phase. Compared to the other one, it's 9 kilowatt maximum, and three-phase supply. So you can get three-phase or single-phase on the second one. So that's the big difference. But still, you have the option to choose. And again, if the, let's say, grid goes down, you will be able to power, let's say, few loads in your house. So usually the internet, the fridge, few things like that. So you have two options available for you there. All right. So now let's look at our storage option. So I'm pretty sure maybe some of you already have a Fronius installed at their place. So if you want to connect a battery directly to the inverter needs to be a hybrid inverter. And here you can see on the wall, you see the Cymo Gen 24, which is the new hybrid. But if you have a snap inverter, which looks like the one on the right, and if you have a red cover there, it means that it is a hybrid inverter. So maybe let's look at what's already there with the snap inverter. So here you have a Cymo hybrid. The batteries which are compatible with the Cymo hybrid, so the normal one, the snap inverter, it's LG Chem and BYD battery. So if you want to have installed LG Chem here, there is some information on our website. Definitely, if you have questions, can help you there. The one thing with LG Chem is that you don't have backup capability. So if the grid goes down, you can't use their battery. But if you want to have backup, then BYD is available and can do that. And the battery which is compatible is BYD HVM, and it can go up to 22.1 kilowatt hour. So if you already have this inverter installed and you have this bottom red cover, you can already you just need to do a software update. That's what the installer needs to do, and this battery get connected with it. All those inverters here has something called the multi-flow technology. I'm pretty sure you saw that at the start, which is one of the feature. So what is this multi-flow technology? So our inverter can basically have power flowing in simultaneous direction. So what do I mean by that? So here, if you look at a system, you have your PV, you have your battery. Let's say you have another inverter, or let's say another source of energy here. Our inverter can take power from the DC, charge the battery, but also from the AC, charge the battery. Also, this particular inverter, let's say you have a 10 kilowatt Cymo hybrid, you can put 15 kilowatt on it. The inverter, of course, because it's rated at 10 kilowatt, it can convert only 10 kilowatt DC to 10 kilowatt AC. But because we have a battery connected to it and we have this multi-flow technology, what we can do is basically send 10 kilowatt to the grid or to the load, and at the same time take 5 kilowatt from the PV and send it to the battery. So that's how this multi-flow technology works. We can have power going in multiple direction there. So let's say you already have a Fronius inverter, which is a generator here. We can charge it from, let's say, from the AC side. So let's look at the Cymo Gen 24. So with this multi-flow technology, but also with the inverter itself, we have a high current input battery. What does this mean is that we can charge the battery really fast. So in some cases, within an hour, your battery can be charged, depending again which combination you take. But we won this energy storage inspection study in Berlin in 2020, where our inverter took the first place with 94% efficiency. So what does this mean is that we try to make the most out of it. We make sure that you try to harvest the most of what you have installed on your roof. So as mentioned, depending on which battery system you have and what inverter you can charge and discharge the battery with 9 kilowatt, which makes it pretty efficient. So some inverters out there can't really do this high amount of discharge and charging. And what will happen is sometimes at your place, let's say you start to turn on a lot of loads, some inverter out there, we will be able just to discharge the battery at a certain rate. Compared to our inverter, it's pretty high. So that's where you don't need to use power from the grid in some situations. So that's where it's really, really beneficial, and highly recommend to have a look at that. So you've seen the backup power option. One thing that I will show for anyone who has a Fronius inverter installed, and also have a Fronius smart meter installed. So why Fronius smart meter is the Fronius smart meter, we use it so that we know how much energy you're using on site. Without that, we don't know. We just know how much our inverter is producing. But if you have a Fronius smart meter installed, and even if you're thinking to go ahead and install solar, data is really important, because we are able to simulate what size of battery will make sense for you. Because I've seen in the past where people install a solar system, they want a battery, but they don't know what size of battery they want. And when sometimes they install the battery doesn't get charged fully at certain point. So with our Fronius, let's say, simulator that we have that you can use, you will be able to do a lot of different simulation to see what will suit your needs there. So that's, I think, pretty special there, and will help to make decision, for example. All right, let's maybe move to the storage system. So I'm pretty sure you heard me saying 22 kilowatt hour battery quite often. In some cases, let's say customers want to have more storage out there. So sometimes 22 kilowatt hour is not enough. They want more. Because some of them want to be independent from the grid, for example. So here it says commercial storage, but I would say it also applies for residential storage. So those 22 kilowatt hour battery that I mentioned before, you can have 3 of them stacked together and connect to a Fronius Gen 24. But also, let's say if you already have a snap inverter, let's say normal one with the black cover there, this will help to charge those battery also through the Cymer Gen 24. So that's where you can have 3 of those battery parallel together and have up to 66.2 kilowatt hour worth of storage. It's quite a lot, to be honest. And definitely to charge this battery, I would say making sure you have quite a big PV system will be quite an important one. But just if you're interested to have a high storage capability, definitely it is possible with the Cymer Gen 24 here. The other part that I mentioned before with the inverter at the start, if you remember, I said our inverter can do a lot of different controls there. So, for example, if you have a Fronius inverter and a smart meter, you can say, if I have excess of power, turn on different devices like your hot water system. Or if you have an electric vehicle, you will say, if I have X amount of power, please turn on my charger for my electric vehicle. I was actually attending a webinar last week when they were saying by 2025 that there will be so much electric vehicle in Australia. So if you're thinking down the track, looking at something like that, definitely our inverter is pretty flexible there. We can show you here. So if you want to increase, let's say, your self-consumption, so the amount of energy that you're using from the PV directly, so divert this extra energy to your EV, for example, definitely this is a perfect combination. It comes with our inverter, so we can send a signal, a 12-volt signal, to a charger, for example, if you can take it, or we can talk Modbus. So again, this is a step for us to achieve this 24 hours of sun, to go this extra step there, to be able to go to, let's say, electric vehicle for the next step. So you've seen all the backup solutions. So again, this e-mobility or this backup solution, you can also do that with hot water system. It comes basically standard within the inverter. I will shift now to the rural area. So for the customers who want to be 100% off grid, we also have a solution. In those cases, you will need or we need to partner with other products. So we have Victron or Selectronics. So what are those devices? Basically, I would say it's the device which control different source of energy. So they are also an inverter here. But what they do is, for example, let's say you have a Victron, they can control battery, they can control generator, and they can control our inverter. From there, this is a way to go, let's say, completely off-grid if you want, or partially grid connected. With this particular solution, of course, I've seen some customers going completely off-grid, but you will need to have another, let's say, inverter installed here, which does all the control. So here in Australia, there's another inverter manufacturer called Selectronics, which also offer one of the solutions. So you see quite a lot of those, let's say, remote areas where they use a Fronius inverter, a snap inverter here, and then they use a Selectronics inverter or Victron, for example. So or that's one of the solutions. So just to show you how it works, this Victron inverter can only have a battery connected to it. What will happen is you have DC power coming from the inverter. The inverter, of course, will change it to AC. Then it goes to the Victron inverter, which converts it from AC to DC to store it here. So that's what we call an AC coupled battery, for example, here. So it's when the battery inverter and the battery itself sits on the AC side of the system. So we did help in a project in Mali with the complex agro-industrial, the Baragwana fish farm in Mali, where we were able to save them quite a large amount. So they use our commercial inverters there, but you can also use our residential inverter. It was quite a big system, 520 kilowatt across multiple sites. So that's where it's pretty interesting. You need to use robust system definitely on those type of sites. So that's where our inverter was the perfect pick. The next part is the digital tools that we have. So when it comes to digital tools, we want to make sure, as mentioned, that data is really important for customers to analyze how they are using their energy. So we have 3 different apps, which some of them are already out, some of them we will release soon. So we have a Solar Start app, which is an installer app to commission the inverter. So that's what your installer will use. Won't go into much details. And we also have the SOS app, which is more an app, let's say, for people to debug and order replacement. So, you know, sometimes we have our own tech support here in Australia. It can get busy sometimes, so we want to make sure that your installer has a second option and go through this process. Let's say for end users, we have a new monitoring app which will come out soon. It's a new graphic, so it's easier to use. I did it myself. Definitely think that this is way better. It gives you, let's say, a good overview of what you're doing. There's different options. Definitely highly recommend to have a look. The one that maybe you will see more often, or installers will show you more often, is our SolarWeb app. So here we show that it's really important to look at what your system is doing, depending on different time of, let's say, different weather there, but also how you use your power, so that you can make, let's say, smart decision there. Okay, I need to charge, I need to use more power at this time. So with our SolarWeb portal, you can see different values there with different power going in different directions. So you can monitor, okay, how much I'm using in my house, how much power I'm sending to the battery, when does my battery get discharged. So it gives you a good overview of what's happening. So there's also more information that you can access through our SolarWeb tool. So if your installer want to really dig into, okay, what's happening to the system, they can check different parameters on this portal. So it's really built to give all the information that you need to know. So definitely highly recommend to have a look at this solution. All right, so maybe let's go to the last part of the presentation here. It's basically the hydrogen solution. We call it the Soul Hub. So as I mentioned before, we have this vision, 24 hours of sun, 100% renewable, right? And one part that Fronius thinks that it will play a big part of is the hydrogen sector. So hydrogen is really good, let's say, in terms of storage. So it's not, I would say, not easy, but it's better than, let's say, a battery when you have long period of time, for example. So for example, in Europe, when it's winter, sometimes their solar system can't charge their battery, and the battery can get, for example, deeply discharged, compared to, let's say, the hydrogen solution is more, let's say, a sustainable way of doing storage. So that's where we think, let's say, the next step to go to achieve this 100% renewable. So in the upcoming years, I think you will hear, okay, Australia is exporting hydrogen, is creating hydrogen. The question is, are they creating in a clean way? So let's explore our Soul Hub. This is basically in our headquarters, in our R&D headquarters here. So before we start, we'll maybe play this video from Mr. Martin Hackel, our head of solar energy there. So he will be able to explain a bit more about what is the Solar Hub.
Wir befinden uns hier vor unserem neuesten Produkt, dem Fronius Ohmpilot. Das ist ein dezentraler Knotenpunkt für Sonnenenergie. Hier im Soul-Hub wird Sonnenenergie mittels Elektrolyse in Wasserstoff verwandelt. Der Wasserstoff kann dann für wasserstoffbetriebene Fahrzeuge abgetankt werden oder auch zum Beispiel im Winter rückverstromt werden und dann wieder in die Netze eingespeist werden. Dies ermöglicht Energiegemeinschaftsanlagen, Kommunen, Unternehmen, Logistikern, aber auch Landwirten, ihre eigene Sonnenenergie zur Erzeugung von Wasserstoff zu benutzen und mit diesem Wasserstoff emissionsfreie Logistik herzustellen.
Right, that was really good. So maybe let's have a look around of the site here. So here you can see all the storage for the hydrogen. So of course you need to store it at a specific pressure, usually around 450 kilopascals, if I'm not wrong there. Definitely it's quite, I would say, huge over there. So let's maybe jump inside our solution of creating this green hydrogen. So before I jump and show you how everything is done, so I think a summary of the whole platform will be quite good. So here you can see that you have your PV installed, you have your inverter to create the electricity. Then from there you have your electrolyzer. So what does the electrolyzer do is basically, when you have water coming in, we separate the hydrogen and then the oxygen. And this electrolyzer needs power, so that's where we provide it through green power through our solar system. And then from there we store them in the tanks. Now when you have hydrogen, of course you can use it for, let's say, electrical vehicle, but also we have a fuel cell which can basically convert this hydrogen back to electricity if required. In both process with water and hydrogen, there is heat being released, and what we do is we use that as like the heat release. We try to harvest this energy also there. So that's something pretty, I would say, pretty interesting. So let's have a look at the actual process here, how the hydrogen get produced. So here we have renewable electricity coming in. We also have water. We split the hydrogen and oxygen so that we can get the hydrogen from the water. It goes to a compressor to basically store the hydrogen. In this process, of course, you have heat being released, and that's what we try to also harvest and not let it go to waste. So when the hydrogen is done and compressed, what we can do is we can use the hydrogen, of course, for your EVs, but you can use a fuel cell to do the reconversion and use electricity, or it will basically produce electricity there. So you have also a heat being generated, and that's where we try to use and harvest this heat to make it, let's say, better efficient system there. So I think that's pretty much it. What I would do is maybe go to our partner program. So for all end users, what we usually recommend is have also a chat with our Fronius solution partners. So those Fronius solution partners are basically different companies who does install solar. They are their own companies, of course, but we work close together with them. So we do their training. We are, let's say, in constant communication with them. So they are people that we work closer together with them to achieve our goal and also to provide this quality service. So you can go on our website. You just type Fronius system partner or solution partner, and you just type the area that you are, and they will give you some recommendation. But definitely, I highly recommend to use a Fronius service partner. So that's pretty much it for now. If you have any question, I think we can take it. All right, so maybe let's have a look at the question. So there's a question saying, can one trade in your old inverter for the new Gen 24? So Barry, it depends which inverter you have on the wall. Look, we're more than happy to have a look at this inverter, and maybe we can have a chat. So I will give you an email address that you maybe can send us or send me an email on, and I will have a chat. I think it will be quite interesting for you. So in the past, we did have a program where the installer comes to us and say, okay, we have an old unit and we want to replace it with a Fronius, and we give them a gift voucher. So I will give you an email address. And you can ask for Sebastian, and I will have a look at this. Usually at Fronius Australia, we don't deal with end customers. We usually deal with the installers, because they are the one installing the product. Actually, I have your email here, Barry, so I will email you some information. I will have a chat internally and see what we can do for you. Let's see if there's any other question. Doesn't look like no one has any question, but there is one thing, maybe a few things that I can give you some recommendations. So one thing that I would highly recommend you, because we work in the industry, we see what is happening out there. What I would be really careful is the quality of installation, right? You can have all the good product out there, and if it is not installed correctly, it will have issues down the track. So here, we don't want to scare anyone. What I would do is look at the company who's installing your product. As I mentioned, in terms of Fronius solution partner or Fronius service partner, those are the ones who are actually trained by us, and those are the ones who provide the best service out there. So we highly recommend that you get in touch with one of them. But in general, even if you decide to go with any other company, check on them, see what they are already to offer, what type of services they actually offer there. Also, I would say right now we have Google. There's so many information out there. I would say do your research. It's really good in general. Be really careful at some information that you have out there. Sometimes it's not 100% true. Always good to check, I would say. And yeah, definitely pay attention to all those parts. At Fronius, what we really want is we want to make sure that we have quality, and this is basically with our product. It's made in Europe. We make sure that we go through each process correctly, compliance correctly, and for us, we really want to see this vision, this 24 hours of sun to happen. And getting our product, it's basically you participating in this vision too. So yeah, looks like there is no other question, but thanks again for taking some time today. We really appreciate it. If you have more question, there will be an email sent out where you can contact us. But definitely thanks everyone. I heard that the weekend will be really good. So everyone had a good weekend, and I hope to see everyone soon. Thank you.